says online. Let's wait for people to come in. I've got a couple of people joining here. Hi everyone who's joining us live. Here we go. So Justine's coming in. So let's get Justine in here. Oh. It says, Justine, you're unable to join. So maybe a private account. Oh, there we go. There we go. No, it's not. Justine should be coming in any second, guys. Yo. There we go.
Get there eventually.
We'll get there eventually. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, good. Nice to have you on. So everyone, this is Justine. This will be slightly different from me because it's a sport that I haven't played. I've never played, I've never even tried. And so I'll definitely be learning a bit more than I normally do, I think. So it should be an interesting one. But yeah, this is Justine Lucas. We'll get Justine to introduce herself in a second. But the first question that I like to ask everyone is what type of call room athlete are you? However, this is probably going to be very different because we're used to just individual sport. Everyone goes to the room, you walk out, you do your race, you're done. And I'm interested to hear what it's like before you walk out to play. So Justine, do you want to take it away and just let us know?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've never been in one of your call rooms. It's a bit of a strange concept for me. So,
yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously being into team sport, we're in the changing rooms, and I am definitely one of those ones that's up and dancing around to the music.
Love it.
A bit of fun, and then as soon as we kind of line up to go out or whatever, that's when I switch on. So definitely got to be relaxed and chilled in the changing rooms and having a bit of a laugh. But then when it's time to go, switch on.
I presume, obviously everyone's different. So do you obviously know the people to stay away from and let them get in the zone, and you know, I presume you get to know what everyone likes and who you should be around. Is that the case?
Yeah, oh definitely. And sometimes, especially like in club rugby, you know that if you sit next to certain people, you'll have a good time, and someone's in the corner kind of like doing their rituals and all sorts of stuff. So you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Intrude on them dancing or anything like that. Yeah.
Sounds good. I'd love to see someone do a little dance routine in one of our call rooms. That'd be interesting.
Lots of dancing in rugby changing rooms, I can tell you that much.
Oh, brilliant. That's great to know. I'm already looking at it like it's a different sport. So Justine, I'd love for you to sort of explain a little bit about your journey. We've had some great questions and we'll obviously get deeper in a bit, but it'd be nice to just hear, I don't know how you got into it and just what you achieved within rugby.
Yeah, so I was a late comer to rugby. I only actually started playing when I was 20, I think, at uni. So I was that kid growing up that did every sport. I even did ballet. That didn't last long.
Nice.
Didn't really like those. But yeah, like all through, played hockey all the way through until I went to uni, played football, basketball, netball, pretty much anything. I would do it because I loved just doing sport. So yeah, picked up rugby, and basically a couple of mates said that they were going down to just do a taster session at Loughborough, and I thought, I was a football goalkeeper at the time, and it's pretty boring being in goal, not going to lie. So I thought, let's find a different sport that's a bit more fun. No offence to any footballers watching. But yeah, so went along and just didn't look back really. Just thought, oh my God, I found the sport that I click with, and I'd always been a pretty big build. So like endurance, running around on a hockey or football pitch definitely wasn't really kind of up my street. So found that kind of more physical sport that just seemed to click, and I just loved it. And yeah, and then it was a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest, and went to Lichfield, who were a Premiership club at the time. And they were just like, you know what, if you work hard, you've got the potential to play for England. So I just thought, wow, this is amazing. I'm just going to knuckle down and try and do it. So yeah, ended up playing for England for from 2013 to 2019, and then decided to, well, take a break. I've not officially retired, but I don't see myself ever playing again, and go back into the working world. And now currently work as the performance lifestyle advisor for the British para swimming team, which is how I know Lauren. So yeah, and absolutely love doing this, and it's my opportunity to give back to sport. So I absolutely love it.
Amazing. Sounds similar to what I used to say about giving back to sport, you know, and it's great that you've done that. That's great. You mentioned before that you were a late incomer to rugby at 20. So
Yeah.
is rugby a younger sport, or is that not normal to go in at that age, or?
Rugby's a bit of a funny one. I think there's so many different positions on the pitch that, like, I played prop, but I was never going to be a winger because I'm never quick enough. So I think it's really good for people like who are going to talent transfer or whatever, because there's so many different skills on the pitch. So we have quite a lot of netballers that come over because obviously that kind of catch pass kind of skill, speed and stuff. A lot of sprinters playing rugby sevens. So I think that there's either kind of two groups of people with rugby: people that have transferred from a different sport, or people that have literally played it from the age of 5. And again, when I started, it was very much like an up and coming sport, and you could kind of come into it later and still be successful, whereas that's probably less so now, although there are still players that have done that. And it's great to see like the success over the England women's team over the past kind of 5-6 years, as you can really see more young girls taking it up from an early age and kind of giving the boys a run for their money in mini rugby, and then more and more girls clubs popping up. So that's brilliant to see.
Yeah, of course. I was going to ask you about some of the things you've just mentioned, like women's participation in rugby, and have you seen a rise in that? Before we start getting into the deep and stuff we should probably really learn about, I'm going to go through some quick fires because I love to start with some quick fires for everyone.
Okay.
So don't think too much, just answer what comes to mind first. So training or playing, sort of, you know, the actual matches.
Yeah.
When you put your cups in the cupboard, are they face up or face down?
Down.
15s or 7s?
15s.
Morning or evening?
Morning.
Grass or synthetic?
Synthetic.
Call or text?
Text.
Hot or cold?
Hot.
Driver or passenger?
Driver.
Scrum or line out?
Scrum. Did you have to Google
Horror? Pardon? I had to try and learn stuff about rugby to get these questions. So, horror or comedy?
Comedy, definitely.
Are you not a horror?
No.
Nah, same. Too scared. Nightmares. Home or away?
Home.
Okay. There are questions, and we've done an overview. And I've had some actually really good questions here, and some things that I didn't even understand myself about rugby. So this is going to be interesting for me. You've mentioned that you were a prop. That was your position in rugby.
Yeah.
Someone's asked to give an overview of a prop's job, and also why you became a prop. What made you that position, or I don't. You just go for it.
Right. Okay. So a prop is probably it's like the fat one. So the one at the front of the scrum.
Okay.
In club rugby, it's the fat one, and hopefully I'm not too fat, but so it's the one that's in the scrum, right in the middle. So each team has 8 forwards, and you'll have 2 props on your team, and we're the ones right in the middle of the scrum. And ultimately, the scrum and the line out are probably our main jobs. So in a scrum, if we want to push the opposition back so that we get the ball, and then the backs get to play off that and have lots of space. So obviously if we're losing the ball in the scrum, then that's not very good. And equally in line outs, where main lifters, so the line where you fling someone up in the air, and again we're the main lifters. So it's props are mainly kind of around set piece.
Yeah.
More in modern times, you get a lot of big ball carrying props. I was probably never really one of those props that could make a 50-meter break, but I'd like to do all of the. I was more of a kind of defensive prop, made lots of tackles.
Okay.
I was quite like jackling, which is where if like an opposition has been tackled, you go in and try and get the ball. Quite a technical skill. That was something that I loved doing. And yeah, so how I ended up as prop. So I actually started off at number 8, which is on the back row of the scrum. But very quickly after joining Lichfield, they were like, "You are not quick enough. You're never gonna make it back row." So
nice.
they pushed me forward and developed me into prop, which wasn't very much fun in the early days. It was quite painful. Cried quite a lot. It can be quite painful when 8 people are basically pushing you backwards and you don't really know what you're doing. But yeah, got there eventually, and obviously got better at that skill. And hopefully I became quite an alright prop. So yeah,
I think you probably did. Yeah.
Answers your question, not knowing much about.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, definitely. No, it's interesting. And just a question from me, really. Would you? This might sound silly, but would you ever find anyone switching positions, or are you like you're a prop? That's what you do, and does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think you're more likely to switch positions like within the forwards or within the back. So sometimes quite a lot of hookers also play back row because they need to be quite quick, quite skillful. And some back rows almost might play second row as well. You normally wouldn't really get like a front row going then into the backs or anything like that. But again, a lot of backs play multiple positions. So might be cover wing and full back. Centres normally kind of cover both inside and outside centre as well. But yeah, as I kind of tried to say at the start, like each position has a completely different skill set. So it is pretty hard to change, but it's not impossible.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Good to know these things. So we're going to dive straight in there with some of the tougher stuff, I suppose, to talk about. Someone wanted to know what the lowest moment in your career has been.
Probably losing the World Cup final in 2017. I think as a team, we genuinely thought we were going to win. And like obviously, as a team, like going into a final, you always believe that. But it was like we'd literally for a whole year kind of been professional leading up to that and put so much into it. We were away so much, and that was really difficult to come to terms with that. And I think actually probably as a team, we probably haven't really come to terms with that yet. Like I know a lot of us haven't watched back the video of it, and I certainly haven't, and I don't have any plans to. That was pretty low, and then well, I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but my decision to leave rugby was probably partly down to that and not really dealing with it, and kind of then not really enjoying rugby. So that was kind of that period after the World Cup was pretty tough for me.
And I can understand that. You know, for me it was, do you do a race and it's over quite quickly and you're out and stuff like that. And I suppose from what you've just said, in the actual match, is there a point in the actual match where you go, we're not going to win it, you know, this is, you know, and it takes over you mentally, or is it when you finish the actual match that you start to go, oh, that's, you know, this is not good?
Yeah, I think in that World Cup final, we were winning at half time, and I was on the bench, so I wasn't actually on the pitch at that time, and we were winning, and we thought, like, this is it, like, we've just got to keep turning the screw and we'll do it. And they just came out firing in the second half, and like 10 minutes into the second half, we were like, we're in trouble here. And again, we probably think we were going to lose, but then they started, you know, scoreboard started creeping away, and I think in rugby you've always got that mentality not to give up. It potentially is not the same in other sports, and I think because the scoring is quite big in rugby, like you get 5 points for a try and then 2-point conversion, so one score is 7 points. So actually it might seem like you're really far behind, but actually you can get that back quite quickly.
There's still a chance to get it back.
and actually like 2 minutes in rugby can be an extremely long time. So
yes,
I think, you know, probably the last 5 minutes of the game, we probably knew that we weren't going to win. And there was certainly some comments from the New Zealand team that made it seem that they won it also. But that we would never, as a team, give up on that, and we'd always want to, you know, if it's just playing for pride, kind of go and score in the last minute.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I know it's interesting, you know, for me to try and think about how that would feel. Like I said, we get in race, and hopefully mine was over within a minute, so it would be all good. Or a minute 0.01, as you know. So on the flip side of that, so obviously that's your worst point, but your best point, what was that, or what's that been?
Obviously my first cap was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I think probably so before the World Cup, there was two moments that like really stand out to me. So we won the Six Nations with a Grand Slam. So we beat all the other teams playing, and we actually beat Ireland in Ireland on St Patrick's Day. So that was pretty good. That
nice.
And as well, we went out to New Zealand just before the World Cup, and we beat New Zealand I think it was the first time in something like 16 years in New Zealand.
Oh, nice.
It was a long time coming, and we went to world number 1. So that was special as well. And we actually played for the Lions. So they played the Maori All. So that was special, because we had literally like Lions fans like singing "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" at us, and it was, you know, when you're like, this is weird, like this is not what women this is not what happens. And we had like thousands of people, and like when we were walking down the street the day before, people singing at us, and it was a bit surreal. So probably one of those two experiences was probably my high, and then obviously pretty quickly after that was a pretty big low. So it shows how quickly it can change.
Of course, that's one of the things of sport, isn't it? It can all change very quickly. But they must have been insane highs, I'm not gonna lie. You know, it sounds incredible. Okay, you did mention something a minute ago, and I have a question here. Highest moment of your career, we've just done that. No, you just mentioned. I did get, actually, this was an interesting one. The best foreign player you ever played against. Is there anyone that comes to mind where everyone would go, "Oh, I don't want to play against them," or you know, you just knew that when they came on the pitch?
So the French are known for their scrummaging, and I always knew that I was in for a tough ride if when we played against France. And I can't remember the girl's name, but I was a tight head prop and she was loose head, and I always knew that. You know when you're like a little bit scared, but you know, right, I'm going to do this. So probably I can't remember the life of me, but we had some pretty good battles, so that was quite fun. Probably
interesting. Yeah, no, good. What about flip that on the England side, the best player you've ever got to play with on the team? Now this will be interesting now, because I'm sure some of them might watch. So.
There's too many to say. All my teammates.
I'm throwing you under the bus here, aren't I, for everyone?
You know, I'm going to say. Can I say a couple of people?
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
So I actually never really get to play with her because she plays the same position as me. But Sarah Byrne, we're both tight head props, and she's a bit younger than me. But she is one of those kind of modern day props who is really good at scrummaging and all that kind of stuff. But her open field play, like, she's just a monster. Like, her legs have zero fat on them; they're just all muscle, and she can run so quickly.
Wow.
We're so jealous of that.
Nice.
So like, I think she's a pretty sick player, and it's really good to see her doing so well now as well. And then Emily Garrett as well, one of my really good mates, but also probably one of the best players in the world, and has been for a little while now. So she's just that calm head.
Oh, nice.
And like, just knows what she's talking about, and gets the job done. Also has a really good boot on her. So if you need to clear the line, you know, get it to Gaz and she'll boot it, or equally she'll slot a penalty over for you. So always really nice to play with her as well.
Well, there you go. I hope you haven't offended anyone there.
I
And
know,
if she has,
really
I'm so
sorry.
sorry. I just lost you some friends. um, the question that I wanted to go back to, it was, you mentioned about your first cap, but someone asked what your actual first rugby match was like, your first ever rugby match,
Ooh.
and do you remember it?
So I actually think I played on the wing. So I played for Loughborough.
Okay.
I think it must have been Loughborough Town, so it wasn't like the uni team. So I played for them, and yeah, it was like one of those ones where it's like, right, it's your first game, you've got 10 minutes and you're on the wing. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't even know what's happening here. And I probably didn't do very well. But yeah, I think that was my only really memory of kind of first playing.
Okay. Well, it must have gone well then, if you don't, if you
Well,
don't have any other memories of it.
probably
No?
not. Although I do remember playing a game, this probably was for the uni at this point, and
Okay.
being my first game at prop. And I literally didn't know where to put my head. And I tried to put it on the wrong side, and the ref had to stop and be like, no, you need to put your head
Oh,
there.
really?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's all
Yeah.
part of learning, though.
Yeah.
And it worked out in the end, obviously, so
Yeah,
it's
no,
all good.
yeah.
I wanted to ask about injuries. Did you have many, and what was the worst one? Because that's what everyone wants to know. What
Oh,
what
yeah.
was the worst injury?
Lots of injuries, whether that be like muscle strains or tendons, ligaments, whatever else. But my worst one, in a scrum actually, playing the Canadian kind of A team. So it was in a scrum, and I heard something. I felt something click.
Oh, no.
Apparently,
Right.
I like yelped and then just like crumbled to the floor. But it turns out, and I didn't really want to put my foot down. Turns out that I ruptured my Liz Frank ligament. So basically the ligament that holds kind of the middle of your foot together. So ruptured that pretty much fully. So had 2 operations, had a metal plate put in, metal plate taken out, and I was out for about 9 months. That was one of my big ones. And then just before I finished playing, I literally tore my calf in half. Again in a scrum. Like I'm not selling being a prop here, am I?
No.
Yeah, scrum in training, and I thought,
in training.
In training as well. Why is someone literally like standing on my leg? They're like scraping their stud down the middle of my leg. What the hell are they doing? And as I was in this scrum, I kind of looked back and thought, there's no one near my leg. I think I know what's happened. So again,
no.
I there and I waited for the physio to come over to me, and I was like, I've done my calf.
No.
Yeah,
that sounds horrendous.
I think it was a 21 centimetre tear basically down the middle of my calf. So that was, that wasn't much fun.
I mean, I never had to deal with that. I have my own lane. No one go near me. It's all good. No one was still on my calf. It's all good. That sounds horrendous. How did you find that mentally, getting back? Because obviously injuries for athletes are, it's really hard mentally.
I think with both of those injuries, I think I was like experienced enough in injuries for it to be okay, and for me to be like, right, this is just a little road bump, but I know that I've got really good physio, and I know that I've got really good support from the whole network, and I'll just do everything that I possibly can to get back. Whereas earlier on in my career, it's a bit more like life ending. Like you're like, oh my God, I've got I don't know what, I've got a bruise on my arm, and it was like the end of the world. Got to go through that to actually say, right, it's not the end of the world, and I'm going to try and get out of it. And also, again, like when you're early on in your career, you end up playing through some injuries you probably shouldn't be playing through. I had shin splints for a while because I was like, I just want like back issues as well. But you're like, you want to play that much that you can just like put them to one side and forget about them after the game, and then you can't move. So I'd say I'd probably learned by the time that I'd got to those 2 injuries that it wasn't the end of the world, and that I was going to be back. But it was actually quite interesting when I did my foot. So many people said, well, are you ever going to play rugby again? And I was like, well, yeah, like, don't be stupid. But actually, for a lot of people, that might have been the end of their career, or in different sports, might have been it. But that literally never even crossed my mind.
Oh, well, that's brilliant, because I know a lot of it does destroy a lot of people, you
Yeah.
know, and it is really easy to sort of get sucked into that, like, you know, of mentally that, oh, I'm not going to make it back and I'm not going to be what I used to be. But you will. It's just about patience,
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, all right, good stuff, good stuff. So outside of rugby, what did you like to do to chill out?
Eat food, drink coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was like just spend time with my mates. Really, I'm a very sociable person. So really, the majority of my rugby playing career, I was working alongside. So it was
hmm,
actually quite nice because I would go to work 9 till 5, and then it was actually rugby that was my release, even though I was
yeah,
playing at a really high level. So um, work kind of allowed me to have that switch off time, and being at work with people that didn't know anything about rugby was really nice. But
yeah.
yeah, like I like eating out, I like coffee, anything like that. Really, just spending time with mates.
Yeah, sounds like me, really, a nice one.
Yeah,
What does this is an interesting one, because swimming 10 2-hour sessions a week, then in the gym and all that. What does
yeah,
a week of rugby training look like? What, you know, what
yeah.
would your typical week be?
So um, so if I kind of go back to when we were full time, so we're in camp quite a lot, because basically,
Yeah,
obviously, us guys were all out playing for different clubs, and then when we were contracted for England, we came
yeah,
into camp like Monday to Friday. So we do rugby most days, sometimes twice a day, and
okay,
you probably have 2 conditioning sessions a week, so like a bike session, something like that. Two
okay,
speed sessions, but we normally kind of put that onto the front of like a rugby session. So you do maybe 20 minutes, half an hour of speed, and then straight into rugby for like an hour,
okay.
hour and a half.
Hmm.
And then 2 to 3 weight sessions. So still training a fair bit, but obviously we probably have more variety than swimmers do. Because you do like unit training sessions. So when I spoke about scrums and lineouts before, we might have an hour just focused on scrums, and then we might go and do another hour later on where we're with the whole team, and you do kind of run throughs and plays and stuff. And then you've got
Hmm.
like skill sessions as well, so where you just might
Okay.
focus on kind of catching, passing, that kind of stuff. So there's quite a lot of variety and things to cover off in the training week. But yeah, so that's probably what our weeks look like. Yeah.
And so would your week as a prop look different to someone else in a different position? Because obviously, although it's a team sport, does it not necessarily feel like a solo sport, but you might, do you see everyone, or does everyone
Yeah.
sort of do their own sort of training?
So generally, we were together as a team most of the time. We might
Okay.
have done like gym sessions or conditioning sessions um, as like a forward pack and a
Yeah.
backs.
Okay.
Or we might have done it all together. It kind of just depended. But normally, like if we were off doing forwards stuff like scrums and lineouts, and the backs would be on the other half of the pitch doing their thing. So yeah, we were actually together quite a lot. Obviously, we'd be doing different stuff in the gym to what some of the backs might be doing, because obviously we need
Okay.
to probably be, a bit more bulky, a bit more muscle mass, and the backs need to be quicker, so they might do
Yeah.
that's specific to those things. But yeah, generally we were as a team most of the time, and definitely within our forwards and backs. Yeah.
Okay. Controversial question now.
Ooh,
Did you ever regret not doing a solo sport,
no,
or do you like being a part of a team?
no, I've definitely a team player. So all of the
Okay.
sports that I've really done
Yeah.
are team sports, and I think I kind of need that social aspect to it, and like playing for other people to drive and motivate me. Whereas
Okay.
when I finished playing rugby, I did some road cycling, but got bored of that very quickly. So anything kind of on my own for about over an hour, I was just like, this is not fun. I need people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. Because again, back to swimming, it's quite social actually. But then obviously when your head's down and you're training, it's just you in your own mind. So it's
yeah,
interesting. I'd love to try a team sport just because I've never had that opportunity yet. Um, but
good.
yeah, no, I thought I'd just see how you found it. I got asked a question that I thought was very interesting, and it was, how do you deal with someone else in the team who's not pulling their weight, sort of thing. Because we never, this was from a swimmer, I know who this was. And obviously it doesn't matter really for us because it's a solo sport. But it is interesting to see how you deal with that.
Yeah, to be honest, in rugby, I think you have that camaraderie where actually if you need to say to someone, mate, come on, like try a bit harder, or like then that's okay. It's very much accepted in rugby.
Right.
And some kind of sometimes that's on a level where it's banter, but like banter that actually would being serious.
Yeah.
And also I think we as a team probably know each other well enough to kind of know if it's right, I need to go put my arm around that person because they're struggling, or
Okay.
whether right, we need to make a joke out of it because they're being lazy and they'll take that. So I think there's probably a spectrum. But yeah, like ultimately in rugby, like if you're playing a game and you're not working hard enough to get to that defensive line, then you're going to be the one that kind of lets the opposition
everyone down.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
in rugby, I think it is a bit different because you've all got to be on your A game. And if you make a mistake, then it could cost the whole team because you're all part of that bigger picture. So I think probably more acceptable for us to call each other out, and the culture is definitely there that happens. People accept it, which probably is a bit different in swimming.
Yeah, no, definitely different swimming. But you've touched on it before, and it was about you. Why you finished rugby, or you say you haven't finished, but you sort of have. And it's just how you came to that decision, and why you came to that decision, really.
Yeah, so after the World Cup, we pretty much had to go straight back into work. So we've been contracted full time in the period leading up to the World Cup, which was amazing, and we never thought we'd got it. But it was actually really, really hard as well, because all of us had to work full time alongside rugby. So actually going into that environment where we were all suddenly all together on camps, away from home, and doing rugby all the time and not having that switch off was really, really difficult. And then literally played the World Cup, I think it was on the Saturday, and some people were literally back at work on the Monday. And I think a lot of us like resented that in a way. I certainly did. So when we were going back to work, I like resented the fact that I had to work again because I'd been given that opportunity. But there was also kind of another few factors that kind of changed my perspective of rugby. So the team Lichfield, like I said earlier, that I'd been playing for, we kind of went through that process in women's rugby in the Premiership that it was becoming like franchise, so people had to bid and to get into that top league. And basically Lichfield, who was the team, I honestly thought I'd only ever played rugby for Lichfield. They'd like developed me as a person, as a player, everything. And I thought, right, yeah, that's it. That's the team that I'm going to play for my whole career. We basically didn't get into the Premiership. So I, in this period of being away from home and being away from that club, had to then decide what club I was going to play for the next year. And it was very much like, felt like it was being forced upon me and my teammates that also played for Lichfield. And basically there wasn't really a club close enough where I was living, because I was living in Birmingham to play for Lichfield. And all of a sudden I was living in Birmingham, was going back to work, which I then resented, then didn't have a club nearby to play for and had to travel 2 hours each way down the road to Wasps in London. And like all of these things just seemed to happen at once. And in my head, I was like, but I'm not enjoying rugby. I know that it's partly because of the Lichfield thing, but it also must be because I've been forced to go back to work. So if I sack off work, then maybe I'll enjoy rugby again. So I decided after being back for about 3 months to leave that job. And I kind of just did like school visits and extra bits and bobs so that I could earn some money. And we did have some income from England Rugby at that point as well. So I knew that I'd be able to get by. And then I still wasn't enjoying it and played in the Six Nations. And I was like, I'm just not enjoying it at all. And I think it was just like all of these things building together. At that point, like I think I kind of knew that I didn't want to play anymore. So I started doing some kind of groundwork to kind of set myself up for post rugby. So doing some volunteering work, and knew that I kind of wanted to give back to sport. And then kind of go on about 6 months. Because obviously it's really hard to suddenly just say I don't want to play rugby anymore when it's been your whole life, and you've become a professional athlete, which is something that you don't think was ever going to happen. So yeah, and then we got a new coach, and that had also been a factor that I didn't particularly get on with one of the coaches. And yeah, I won't go any further into that. But didn't particularly get on to him, but he ended up leaving. So I thought, okay, this might be the turning point. And the new coach we got in, it was great, but it was almost like too little, too late. And I already kind of had that like hatred of rugby by that point. So yeah, and then we're actually at a camp, and that's when I did my calf, and I kind of see it as a bit of a sign. Because I kind of did my calf and I did everything that I possibly could to get back to playing rugby, but in the back of my head I was like, I don't really want to play, like I just don't want to play. But I knew that I had to do everything I could and say that I wanted to be back, because otherwise I'd just look like an absolute idiot and like I wasn't looking after the team. But yeah, but it got to that point where basically I was meant to be playing rugby on the Sunday, first game back from this injury that had me out for about 4 or 5 months, and like literally it was the last thing that I wanted to do. And actually this job came up, and I think it's the stars aligning that actually I applied for it and got it, and it all kind of worked out in the end. And actually I'm really happy with how that did work out, because I'm not sure if I would have got the love back for rugby if I kept on trying, because I've been trying for a year and a half, and I still hadn't got it back. So yeah, like that's a really long-winded way to basically say that probably fell out of love with it, but actually found something now that I kind of can fill that void with and really love doing.
Yeah, and that's really lucky, and I know a lot of athletes will be able to resonate with so much of what you just said. And falling out of love with the sport it's hard to get your head around something that you've done, for so long. And you go in the first stage is, I think, a sort of denial of like, no, I still love it, it's wanting to still, but the realization soon that when your time is done, really. And then, like you say, you've moved on to work with the British Para Swim team, the Performance Lifestyle Advisor, and they're a great team, and I had some good questions from them. But one that I'd love to ask you from them was, what's your favourite aspect of working with the British Para Swim team?
I thought you were going to say, who's your favourite athlete? And I was like,
well, that was the next question.
My favourite aspect, just like getting to know them as people, and obviously I'm there to support with their kind of lifestyle outside of swimming, and I think it's obviously great to see them move in the pool, but actually all of them have so much more than just being a swimmer, and it's really like when you get to know them properly, and you kind of feel like you can help and support them get beyond their swimming life and see them kind of go off into the future, hopefully, and be successful in whatever they choose to do after swimming. That's my favourite bit, really, is building up those relationships, seeing them blossom as people.
Yeah, and it's so important. And I think a message that I try and get across to young athletes as well is, there is life after sport. It feels like it's everything at the time, and it is really important, but there's still stuff outside of it as well. Brilliant. Working in sport and rugby, have you seen crossovers from sport to sport, or is it's like really different?
Yeah, I mean, obviously swimming and rugby are very different, but like, there are obviously aspects of similarity, and I guess there's always things going on that are probably similar across all sports. So yeah, and I think when you've got 30, 40 people coming from all different walks of life, you're going to have kind of issues and stuff, but actually it's how we can get through that team. So yeah, like nothing kind of springs to mind that's like too different when you're in that kind of like camp or competition environment. Everyone's pretty focused and knows what they're doing, and all the staff and team are absolutely brilliant and bend over backwards for the athletes, and so yeah.
Something that was really important in my journey, and I presume in a lot of athletes' journeys, is family and friends really. But family for me was massive. I came from a swimming background, so they knew a lot about swimming and stuff like that, which helped out a lot. Also had its disadvantages sometimes when they knew a bit too much, when I'd done a really bad race and they knew exactly why. But I wanted to ask about your family. And were they supportive of rugby? Did they know about rugby? You know, what was that like for you?
The battery left. Yeah, I think my mum probably wasn't too keen when I said that I started rugby.
Right.
Because, you know, it's that stereotypical kind of like, oh, well, you're going to get injured.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a lot more to rugby than that. And now she's like the biggest advocate ever for rugby. And she tries to like get my little cousins to play. It's like, why are they not playing rugby? It's the best sport ever. Like, for developing people.
That's
so
brilliant.
Yeah, like, my dad is very much like an individual sports guy. Used to play a lot of squash and stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, like they've always been super supportive in my sport, whatever sport I wanted to do. My mum was like #1 taxi driver for years, taking me to like hockey, netball, whatever it was. So yeah, they were very supportive and obviously really proud, and they kind of flew out to everywhere that they could to come and support me. Yeah. They were there for my first cap, which was amazing. They flew out to New Zealand to support me in that, and obviously had a holiday as well.
Yes.
And my dad's a really keen photographer, so he's got a lot of really cool photos. So that's really nice that he can kind of do that. Well, he used to be able to do that and kind of support me at the same time. But yeah, like my brother did play rugby growing up, but he is much more of like a theatrical, musical kind of guy. So we've gone on very different journeys. But yeah, so yeah, all very supportive. All come down and watch when they can. So yeah.
Interesting, yeah, that's good. When you just said your brother's gone off and done sort of musical and that sort of journey, my brother's just randomly started to do all that stuff, and I know he's watching now. And that's always interesting to watch because he swam with me and then went into that, and that's been interesting to watch, and it's really good. He does that with his girlfriend, so that's cool. Perfect. I got asked by another one of the British para swimmers, and it was, is rugby still your favourite sport, or swimming taking the lead?
Oh God, I love all sports and watching.
That's an interesting answer. That's a don't upset anyone answer. That.
I still love watching rugby. As I said before,
Yeah.
I don't think that I'll ever probably play again. Maybe a cameo here and there, but yeah. But yeah, like obviously now working and knowing the guys at para swimming, it is brilliant to see them race and do well and develop. And so yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoy getting to watch them in all their comps and stuff. So yeah. No, it's fun. It's fun.
No, it's I mean the atmosphere of racing or competing is always an exciting one, and it's nice that you still enjoy watching rugby. The last question that I wanted to ask was, you mentioned that you hated rugby at one point, or you really. How do you feel about it now? Are you friends again?
I still probably, there's still something there that like. Yeah. But again, like I want to support all my mates and my partner who still play and stuff. So I'm not gonna let it kind of affect that, and I'll be there for them and support them. But there probably was a period where I was like, didn't want to watch it, didn't want to have anything to do with it. But I'm definitely kind of through that period now. And yeah, and I still love watching it, like the men's premiership or like the Super Rugby that's going on in New Zealand at the minute. I can still really appreciate that and still enjoy watching it, but it probably wouldn't now be my first thing to watch, whereas probably at one point in my life it definitely was. Yeah, of course, yeah. No, well, that's great. Thanks for joining us today, Justine. No worries.
It was really good to hear about your story, and I now know a little bit more about rugby, and I want to watch it. And I will watch back all of your games.
I'm sure there's lots of local rugby teams near you.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to try. I want to try stuff out now. You know, now I'm not in swimming anymore. It's good to. It'll be good to try some different stuff. So, but yeah, thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching live. And I'll see you next week. But thank you, Justine. It was brilliant.
Cool. Thanks, guys. See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.